welcome back to the For a Purpose podcast. My name is Jaden Boyce. Alongside me is John Hinsman, and a very special guest today in Lincoln Likeness. Did I pronounce that last name right?
Likeness.
Likeness. Okay, my bad. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. How you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, very appreciate you coming on the show today. But yeah, as we start off every podcast, kind of like a where you're at, where you're from, and like kind of the backstory about how you got to where you're at. Yeah.
Well, I'm at Hudson Physicians. I'm one of the sports medicine doctors there, and recently elected president of the group. So that's a new hat I wear. And I grew up in South Dakota, toured throughout the Midwest for training, and my wife is from New Richmond, so we decided to settle in the area. And we have 2 daughters, and they go to the Hudson schools.
Okay, yeah. A little side question about South Dakota a little bit. Some would say a tourist place over there a little bit. We had a huge debate in college with some of my friends. We were talking about the best places to go and stuff, and they're all like Montana, this and that. And I threw out South Dakota, and everyone was hating on me for it. And I was like, I had a great experience in South Dakota. Tell the viewers a little bit. Do you love South Dakota more than Wisconsin, or like what's your kind of backstory on South Dakota? Is it not a great state?
I think it's a great state. It's kind of like the Wild West still, and so it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for like a road trip, something like that, going west to the Black Hills would be the right place. If you're more of an outdoorsman, the northeast corner where I grew up is like a mecca. There's lakes and sloughs and rivers and a lot of hunting and fishing activities around there. But if you're a pro sports person, you're going to be out of luck over there. You got to choose a college and follow them, which is usually what happens.
Are you do you like Wall Drug or no?
I've been to Wall Drug. Not sure I want to claim anything from Wall Drug there.
Free water.
That is the tourist trap of all. But you'll see signs even in foreign countries for that darn place, and that's some creative marketing, I'll tell you.
Nah, it is, yeah.
So northeast South Dakota, what was your population and what was the name of the town you were in?
So I came from Watertown, South Dakota.
Okay.
It's probably the 5th largest town in the state. It's going to be a Hudson River Falls sized place. But it's, you don't really need to lock your door or anything like that. It's kind of laid back. Everybody knows everybody.
Sure.
Kind of a deal. Was able to grow up in the country. Started in town, convinced my parents in 4th grade to move to the country.
How far removed was that?
Well, it was just outside of town. It wasn't too far. It was like 10 minutes or something like that. But my grandparents were farmers and ranchers, and I just loved every bit of that. So convinced my parents to make the move. And then we got into horses and did just about everything you can with a horse over the course of time. And so I kind of had a blend of town and a blend of country when I was growing up.
Awesome.
What do you prefer, town or country?
Country boy.
Country boy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Watertown, were you involved in sports in there, or what would you do there?
Well, that was back when you didn't have to train all year round for things. And so you could play 4 or more sports. So I was football, wrestling. I played basketball before I went out for wrestling. Tennis, track, rodeo. Like I did all of those things.
Yeah.
So,
You're into the rodeo.
Yeah.
What'd you do there?
All of it. So bull riding, bareback bronc riding, and bullfighting, team roping. So that's one of my lessons in life. Was actually when I was growing up, I was a little more timid, a little shy, and realized I didn't like that about myself, and I wanted to make a change. So I voluntarily chose to be anti-anxiety, and so I decided to give up on the basketball after I was cut, and my teacher was the wrestling coach and convinced me to try out partway through high school, so I got a late start in it. But did that. Went out in the summer. I rodeoed. Then just bought a horse, saved allowance, bought a horse, got a rope. Back then you didn't really train much. You just kind of did it, cowboy up and go. So I remember the first rodeo, paid the fee, borrowed a bull rope, got my draw, did a little bit of stretching, had no gear, no flak jacket, no helmet like they have now. Had an old timer make sure I got the bull rope on right, so I didn't have it backwards or something like that, and nodded and just about passed out from the adrenaline rush of that the first time, with no experience. You know, I did some dummy training and stuff, but and out we went. About $3 later, I whacked the fence to my head, and that was about the end of that. And thought it was great. Did it again the next weekend, you know. So um, I was actually a roper first. That was kind of my way in. Was you got to learn to rope, got to know everything, and I actually tore my left index finger off
Nice.
doing that early on as a rookie. And since I couldn't ride with my left hand, which was my main riding hand for rodeo, I switched to my right hand from there on.
Wait, so you were a lefty?
No, that's how you rode. So
Okay.
I don't. It was just tradition or balance sake or whatever, but that's what you would do back in the day. And so that changed. So I just rolled the punches again. You know, it's you gotta be resilient. You gotta be tough. I decided to teach myself grit and determination. And discipline was huge. I didn't have much to train with, so I would move the hay bales from one end of the hayloft down and over to the other for strength training. Had a little bitty rope, not the kind you have in gym class, like a tough to hold on to kind of one. And get my hand strength back, I would climb up that just with your hands to the rafters, you know, 10 times or so, like the military does.
Yep.
So I'd do that. Just hard work back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like, a lot of sports, like, I was in football and like track and like before a game or before a race, I'd get like super nervous, obviously, but like in like the rodeo, I mean, knowing that you can like die and like going into a bullfight, I feel like the nerve for that would be insane.
Yeah, it's a rush. I don't know. I used to just slap myself in the face and
Yeah, that'll do the trick.
and just say, "Let's go, boys." You know, out you go.
When you bought your first horse, did it have a name or did you have to name it?
Yeah, it had a name. It was Santee Tough Lynx. It was kind of a breed, a lineage name that there was. But and I bought it for $100. It was a foal, and
cheap.
trained it. Yeah, trained it myself. It wasn't the nicest horse in the world, but we got it to work, and that was the first experience in 4th grade.
Yeah. We never had horses grow up on the farm, but I remember my dad and uncles telling stories about breaking horses and what kind of job that was.
Yeah, there's the traditional way where you go get them when they're 3 or 4 years old and they're plenty strong and all that, and
Yeah.
you hang on for dear life. And then there's the better way where you teach them all along to trust you. And so there's a couple methods to the madness.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have brothers or sisters?
So I'm the oldest. I have a brother about 2.5 years younger, and then another 2.5 years later, my sister came along.
Okay. Are they still out in South Dakota?
Yeah, everybody still lives in South Dakota.
Okay.
It kind of bounced around a little bit, but everybody still lives out there.
And the farm is still active?
Well, it's kind of winding down now quite a bit. My parents are a little older now, and so they just lost their last horse to old age here. So
Okay.
I think it's pretty quiet right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do they still do crops or cattle or anything like that, or is it just?
So we have ranch land, so
Okay.
there's pasture that we run. My brother-in-law does black Angus beef and
Okay.
red Angus. So they ranch that still.
Yeah.
And then the row crop land is
Sure.
rented out.
Okay.
So you don't have any horses or anything here though in Wisconsin?
We do.
Oh,
Yeah,
you do?
We
How
have,
many
we have
horses
a
you got?
ranch outside town. Yeah, we have 2.
Two.
Yep.
Are your kids aren't into that rodeo stuff though?
Yeah, they aren't doing everything that I did. And I have 2 daughters, so it'd be different anyway, most likely. But they just wanted to learn to ride, and I think that's a good skill, and it teaches you a lot more than just how to ride. So you learn how to take care of animals, you learn how to read body language, and you learn how to be tough, you learn how to get dirty, you learn how to just essentially work hard and take care of something. And so I think that's a great lesson for anybody to have, and then it doesn't hurt to be able to ride. That's fun.
Now, I've known Lincoln for quite a while. I've never known this, so this is pretty cool. You know, it's like, all right, we can chat about farming a little bit more off air, huh?
No,
Yeah.
I mean, knowing that we got a real life cowboy to the left of me right now. I should have opened up with that. My goodness, Lincoln.
Everybody asked me about the bulls, which was the most of a rush, but the hardest on you was the bareback horses. You got like a grip in your crotch, you know, and you got to hold on for dear life, 8 seconds. And every buck on those, and they're bred to be big and strong. They're not like your average size horse usually, and
Right.
so every buck is kind of like going through a car crash in the 8 second ride. If
Yeah.
you can ride that long.
Yeah.
So, and you know, you learn a lot of humility too along the way, and I think rodeo taught me that, because if there was a world championship for staying on less than 8 seconds and landing on your head, I would be the multi-time winner of that.
You know, a lot of like, you know, sports, like don't like other sports, like maybe like, you know, wrestling and basketball, they kind of have their rivalry. Explain, did Western riding and English riding kind of
Yeah.
have a rivalry?
Yep. So Western is kind of your traditional cowboy look, you
Mhm.
know, and so your bigger saddle, and they can have different functions to them. Like the roping saddle has a lot of rubber bands around the horn and stuff to wrap your rope around, and that's called the dally. And then the English is the real refined look where you barely have anything you're sitting on, and you have to do that posting. You know,
Mhm.
you kind of move forward when they trot, and they trot a little faster. So, and you wear the whole get up, you know, with the black boots and the goofy hat and all that stuff.
Did you
It's-
not like English riders then?
I actually did that too.
Oh, really?
I don't know if
Okay.
I should admit it. No, so when we were younger, we did showing, and it was great. It was a youth organization called Ponies of America, and you graduate out of it, and you either move on with life, or you stay in and you train or coach, or you go into quarter horses, Arabians, or something else. But they're bred to be a little shorter. They can be anything from a quarter horse look, like the sorrel look, or they can be Appaloosa look. And they're really versatile. So you could do everything from the costume stuff to the English, the Western, and the games at the end. And the same horse can do it all. And then they would have the all around. You score points for how you place. And we had some pretty good horses. We won numerous world championships, international championships, and drove all over the country with them.
Jeez.
It was great. That was like our summertime activity.
That's
Dang,
awesome.
That
Yeah.
is.
I just learned probably about 2 weeks ago. I was talking to a parent at school when I was waiting for Brez, and she was telling me about her daughter. They were looking at horse riding in the SEC, like Auburn, Texas, all these schools. They have a huge. You can get a scholarship in horseback riding.
Yeah, it's because there's so many scholarships in the other sports for the men. They have to have equal scholarships, which is good and appropriate.
Yeah,
But some of the places they'll fill with scholarship equestrian team,
yeah,
or like golf is another good opportunity.
Yeah.
That is less known.
yeah, yeah. She was telling me how beautiful Auburn University was. She's like, you drive down there and the equestrian setup. She's like, it's just amazing. I was like, wow, I didn't know that.
Is that turning into like a bigger sport right now then?
I don't know if it's growing or not. I think that helps. I think it gives a good opportunity to have something that's a little bit less common, and different type of athletes. I mean, if you think about all the shapes and sizes of athletes, you're all athletes. You do different things. If
Right.
you use your body physically to do something, you're an athlete.
Mhm.
So when it comes to you and I getting hurt on the weekend doing something, you're still an athlete to me in my clinic. And just what was the mechanics of the deal, and how do you prevent it the next time, and all of that. So it's great to have all those different kinds of sports. I think there's some sports that are kind of staying the same, and some are coming up. Just played a little bit of pickleball.
Oh, I love pickleball.
Oh man, yeah, my hips are getting worn out probably from all the riding, but pickleball you don't run as much maybe, and that's pretty fun.
It is, because I mean, you know, tennis, you got to be so skilled for it, but pickleball, you can really take anyone. Just have
Yeah,
them play.
my two daughters, my wife and I. My wife was the one drove that, and she loves that sport, and I kind of followed along. And boy, we both all picked it up real quick. Plays real similar to tennis, and
I feel like I got like hated on at the start too. Everyone was like, "Oh, that's an old person sport." But,
It
like
did.
now, it's like really becoming.
now it's professional.
Yeah, it is professional.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of I saw it on a couple of the sport channels now recently that there's like a tour, and the athletes are just incredible looking athlete specimens.
Yeah.
Just like anything else.
Yeah, we were down to one of Carson's game and we were watching turn on ESPN Ocho, and they had rock skipping on there. Now those guys didn't look like real athletes, but you could win like $15 part of the prize if you were able to hit the tower of rocks out there. So
What is it, a $20 entry though?
it might be, you know, you gotta,
They gotta have special rocks. Like
Oh,
how
yeah.
many times can they hit the water on that thing? They get like
That's-
100 skips. Maybe
that's what
on it.
that's what they counted as. So the more skips, that's how you win. But if you hit the pile of rocks in the center, they get the grand prize or whatever. So
Oh.
yeah, so it's
I'll have to check
yeah,
that out.
yeah.
I'm running out of options in my master's level here.
Yeah,
you know,
go rock hunting. So, anyway, so let's talk a little bit about a little bit more about your family. So, your wife and 2 daughters.
Yep.
Okay.
16 and 13-year-old daughters.
Oh, got a license now
Oh yeah, that's been life changing. Oh man.
for you or her?
Both. Yeah, I mean the time you get back once they can get where they need to, and when they're an athlete and
Yep.
in school, they're just always needing to be somewhere, you
Right.
know, and that's been the trick as a parent, you know, and the more stuff you add, the harder that gets. So that's been great.
Yep. And your wife, she owns her business her own, right?
Yeah, she's a dentist.
Yep.
She's in Stillwater. Lift Dental's her practice, and so when we had the babies, it was hard to run a practice on.
Right.
So she worked in Hudson at a group practice where you have a couple partners and that kind of thing. And she always had this dream to have her own place in Stillwater, and boy, she made that happen. So it's a labor of love, but it's a beautiful practice, like a boutique little thing. Everything in there is designed just the way she wants it to be, and
Awesome.
yeah, that's been fun seeing her be successful with that.
Now, how did you two meet? Your South Dakota and Richmond.
So we both transferred from bigger schools. She was a Badger, and I was a Cornhusker.
Oh.
And so we transferred to Augustana University in Sioux Falls,
Okay.
and we met there in class and pre-science type classes, pre-health classes, and we were just starting to date pretty seriously when college ended. So it was kind of now what, you know. And I decided to go straight to medical school. I went to Kansas City, and she was going to take a year off. Then she got into Marquette, and that's quite a few states separated, you know.
Right.
So she came home for a little while and decided that I must be the right guy. Lucky me, and somehow convinced her of that. Not sure how. And so then she came to Kansas City for a little while before she went off to Marquette, and then we spent the next decade chasing each other, trying to get to each other's community where the training, because you're training all over. I trained in Michigan and all over the Midwest and
Sure.
on rotations and so you're just always trying to spend the last dime you got to get together on a weekend or on a holiday or something
For
like
sure.
that. It got pretty tough. So
You did that for 10 years.
yeah, for the most part. So you graduate, you're like 21 or so when you graduate college, and by the time I took my job in Hudson, I was 30.
Really?
And I trained longer. So another kind of resiliency story, or I thought I thought I would probably end up in South Dakota, probably go to the local medical school where my dad had graduated from. My brother got admitted out of high school, out of a program, and so I didn't get admitted to that school. So they only had 50 seats, and I had left the state, come back, things like that. So it doesn't always go the way you think it's gonna go,
Mhm.
and you got to roll with the punches. I learned a lot from that. So next thing was I'm in Kansas City, and next thing is I'm trying to figure out how to get to my future wife and get through training. I liked orthopedics. Obviously, I do sports medicine,
Mhm.
but that would have kept us further away and bigger problems. So then I had to go with family medicine. Great field of practice, but I knew there was something that I needed something more. So I decided I'd subspecialize into sports medicine. So I worked really hard at getting into the right places, and we were in Milwaukee at the time. There was one program there, and then there was the one at the University of Minnesota, essentially. And I tried to get into those, and that was just the most competitive year that they'd ever had for those programs, and I didn't get matched in one of the two. So now I don't have a specialty. I have to figure out what to do. And so I called one of the program directors who I knew really well at that point and wondered what had happened. And he's like, well, you were ranked really highly, but it's a match, a lottery system, and there's nothing we can do about it. He's like, well, let me look. Cleveland Clinic had an opening. I think it's the only time in their life that they ever had an opening, like the match didn't work out for them. Something had gotten screwed up. And they're like Mayo Clinic for those that don't know. It's like the most incredible opportunity
Hmm.
to train. And so that guy happened to be alumni from that place. So he called him and said, "What are you guys going to do with that opening?" He's like, "Well, we have interviews tomorrow." And I mean, it happens that fast.
Yeah.
And I was in Milwaukee. I got somebody to cover my overnight 30-hour shift that you used to have to do. Now they get that. Now that's more controlled. But you used to have to do 30 hours in a row or so.
Straight.
Yeah. And then when I was done, I'd go and train with somebody else until the end of the workday to do what I do now, like spine injections and things.
Sure.
I was just a glutton for punishment. Just couldn't masochist. You couldn't work hard enough.
Right.
So I drove to Cleveland from Milwaukee overnight, and I get there and probably disheveled and exhausted or whatever. And I was expecting it to be highly competitive. No one else could make that interview on that short of notice.
Wow.
And I showed up, and the guy's like, "Wow, you have an incredible, I spent 3 years preparing for that. I was covering marathons and doing all the extra stuff, like I mentioned." But he's like, "Why didn't you match?" I'm like, "I put down 2 places, and the magic number usually was 7 that you'd probably be lucky enough to match somewhere and train."
Right.
And I didn't know that till afterwards. But he's like, "Well, you made it, and it looks good. Do you want the job?" So I got the job right there. It was a year of training. That was LeBron James's first stint, so I got to be around him. He's
Goat
probably
James.
my highest profile athlete I had the privilege to work with, and PGA Tour, U.S. figure skating, all the divisions in college. The Indians and baseball, the Browns. That was coming off a year they actually did really good. And then the year I was there, they didn't do so well at all. And it was Joe Thomas was there at that time, so
Sure.
I got to meet him and be around him. It was just a great experience that I carry into what I do every day. Everybody to me is essentially the same as a pro athlete in my mind when I'm taking care of somebody, whether it's you or it's your kid or
Right.
whatever. You've seen it. Everybody's equally important, gets the same effort from me.
Wait, so like, listen to this. Pretty good resume of all like the teams and different
Pretty
stuff.
good.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. If you work with the GOAT, John, I mean, I don't think a resume gets better than that. But I'm guessing you have to have some pretty good stories of some of these like athletes and stuff that you've worked with.
I got a few stories. Probably some should never be told, but
Yeah.
when you're around these guys, there's some crazy things that do happen and some confidentiality things. But I've got my favorite LeBron story is it's the game before the playoffs, and they're in the playoffs. They're probably the number 1 seed, and he's a young LeBron, and so he's sitting right in front of me. It's just he and I in the training room. He's sitting on the training table, and I'm essentially trying to blend into the wall. And there's the TV on right overhead, and he's in there. They arrested him for 1 game, but they're talking about it, and I'm sitting right there looking at him. It's just the 2 of us, and they're talking about him that he's, tired, he's injured, he's already washed up, he's too proud, he's like everything you could think of, and they're just bashing him. Nothing was good. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I couldn't believe they were sitting right there, and he's kind of on his phone, I was like, I wonder if guys of that caliber hear the noise and how they respond to that. And he looks up at me, he goes, "Shit, Doc, I ain't tired. You feel me, bro?" They listen, when they want to. I suppose they got to turn that crud off a lot.
Oh.
But they're people too.
Yep.
And they just have extraordinary skill. But I learned from that as well. And that you can't let the haters get you. You gotta be resilient from that too. You gotta stick to what you do best and believe in yourself. You gotta have gratitude for the things you have. You just gotta go forward 1 step at a time, and that's what he has done and why he is the GOAT.
Yeah, you heard it here first, right here, Lincoln. Yeah, making me happy over here.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see though, because like a lot of the people talk about MJ and back then, and even like Kobe, like can they even hear the noise and stuff? And it seemed like they never really spoke out about it. But like now, kind of in athletics, these guys are starting. I think it's starting to finally just piss them off though. I mean, we saw LeBron confront Stephen A. Smith the other week, and then Rory McIlroy over at the players when he like took a fan's phone and like I don't know, did he give it back or did he throw it?
I don't know.
You not hear about that? But yeah, he took a fan's phone. So it's like, is it getting to the point you think with social media now that like it's finally getting to these athletes?
I don't know that it'll affect them. I think it'll affect some, and they just decide to give up. They can't handle it, and maybe they find a different path again that's healthier for them, or whatever. But those that can withstand all of that pressure, and it takes a lot, but that's pretty incredible that they can push through some of that stuff. That stuff can almost be worse than the physical grind and all the
Oh,
other things. I mean, to have that much mental pressure and anguish, and then you start throwing the finances and a pro athlete in there and all that stuff. I can't imagine what weighs on their shoulders some days.
you got to remember they're human too. I mean, that's a lot of times people forget, like, you sit behind a screen and I'll post this stuff, and obviously reading some of it with, my own kids involved and where they're at. But it's like, you got to remember these people are human. It's not like they're out there trying to be, make mistakes or errors, but we'll dive in a little bit longer or later about the errors and mistakes and stuff. But I want to go back. Was your wife an athlete?
Yep. So she's a runner,
Okay.
still is. She played a little basketball.
Okay.
She's way more athletic than I am, and in way better condition too. So I think that's a story where how far do you want to take the skill you have, and where are you going to use the skill you have? And she was satisfied with the athletics that she did in a high school level or whatever, whereas I just can't get enough of what I'm still trying to be associated with,
Right.
and she was satisfied. Like, where is your passion? Where are you going to be happy?
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to put energy into? Where's your balance in life? Those are the things that she's taught me.
Sure.
And it's been really good for me to be married to Sarah. And I she could have been the 10 times the athlete I could have been.
Yeah. And now you got two kids, 16 and 13. How do they fit into that as far as, are they equally, like, we got the balance, or is one more competitive, one less?
Yeah, it's interesting. When they were younger, the younger one probably was a little more just naturally athletic. The other one more the bull in the china shop type
Right.
deal. And as it goes, you kind of change a little bit. And so um, the older one is a soccer player, and looking to go Division 1 if possible
Sure.
in soccer, and all the things, the pressure, the training, the extra time. You have to pick one thing and do that. And she's now the competitor, that Lionheart type.
Sure.
And the younger one is still trying to figure out who she is, and she's not sure if she wants to push that hard or whatever. So it needs to be fun, and I've learned a lot about girls versus boys as well in sports.
Mhm.
The boys often, the majority of them, they just want to beat the other team until there's not another team, then they want to beat each other.
Right.
They're just competitive by nature. And so it's about winning most of the time, or success for a male. And for a female, I've learned that it's about the group, it's association, it's fun. And if those things aren't there, it's not worth doing
Yeah.
for a lot of them, not all of them. I mean, your Olympic caliber athletes are going to have that competitive fire.
Right.
But in the majority of your female athletes, they do it for other reasons. And if those are gone, they don't want to do it anymore, or they burn out or whatever. And so we're trying out a little bit of volleyball now for the younger one. She's loving that. She's found that she is a setter,
Yep.
and she has a little extra split second to think,
Mm.
when you're setting, rather than the ball's flying at you a lot of the time. So I think that's a perfect fit for her
Yep.
and for Bryn. And I can't wait to see what she does. She's gonna be my sleeper. She's gonna be the surprise that I didn't see coming once again. When Sarah and I got married, we thought we'd have 4 boys and it'd be rough and tumble and whatever, based on we're both fairly competitive and so on. And
Yeah.
here we are with the 2 daughters, and it's the best surprise and gift you could ever have. And they've taught us so much. And so you never know where it's gonna go. And I can't wait to see where these girls end up, someday. And it's been fun coaching them through life.
Yeah.
Or your daughters, do they lean more Badgers or Cornhuskers?
So they are Badgers. They are Wisconsin, Green Bay, and Badgers and all that stuff. My wife would not have it any other way. I've kind of had to blend living in South Dakota, where you kind of just you cheer for whoever you cheer for. Most of the time, it's Vikings, and some of the more local colleges now have become Division I schools. When I were growing up, they were D2 and 3.
Right.
Um, so now that you can kind of everybody's got yours. So in my family alone, I'm Augustana. Sister is SDSU Jackrabbits. Brother and parents are USD Coyotes.
Oof.
So I mean that's just kind of like what South Dakota is like.
That's a
right
triangle right
yeah,
there.
Yeah. So and when the Cornhuskers and Badgers play, I'm always conflicted a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of stick with where you started. When I was at my first year at college, that was the second year they won national championship. I got to go to the Orange Bowl. It was a great experience. Be in the student section.
Yeah, when I played basketball at St. Cloud State, we'd go out and play South Dakota State, and they were always partnered with Augustana. And you talk about fans that were crazy. You play the Jackrabbits, and you got these old guys standing on the edge of the court with these big cowbells and just ringing them. Right, I'm down the floor, and he's like just calling you everything and ringing these bells.
Back in the day, the Jackrabbits and Coyotes would play each other, say basketball.
Yeah.
Halfway through the game, there'd be a dead jackrabbit thrown on the court.
That's actually
or
crazy.
a dead coyote.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think you get away with that anymore. But I mean, they're a bunch of country boys. You
No.
know, they probably just did it while doing chores that
Yeah.
morning. They found one,
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Vermilion, you'd play in a dome. They set the basketball court up in the dome, and you go out there and play, and it's like, what is this? But yeah, there's some intense fans out in South
I mean, I
Dakota.
guess like you said though, when you got like no other you got no pro sports over there, it's like you got to be a diehard college fan at that point.
Yeah.
But I go back to what you said earlier as far as grow up on a farm and the value of hard work, and I grew up on a farm, and it's just what you did, stack hay, do chores, whatever. And I think that the fans out there still value that so highly, that hard work, but they want to see their athletes do that,
Yeah.
The
key is there's not a sense of entitlement until you get to maybe Sioux Falls or something like that. And we cover sports medicine for 4 schools currently: Prescott, St. Croix Central, Hudson, and River Falls, and love them all. And they're very different environments.
Mhm.
And so let's compare St. Croix Central to Hudson Raiders. There'll be a little more entitlement in the Hudson group of kids, and then we go back to the dynasty that St. Croix Central had in football there, where they were really dominant and won state championships and stuff. And I think it was because all these boys were just country boys, hard workers. They didn't expect anything. They knew they had to earn it, and they just worked for it. I mean, you were in the gym with them every morning and so on,
Right.
and that was something to see. And then in the same kind of timing, maybe a year or two prior, had probably the most athletic group of Hudson Raiders, and they made it really far in
Yeah.
the playoffs and just barely lost, and they could have maybe gone the whole way, but they just lacked that little bit of extra chip and toughness
Yeah.
that you can't teach.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's hard, is as much as like being an educator nowadays, how do you coach that, teach that? And that kind of leads me down my next thought here is, so you're in sports medicine, so you see a variety of athletes nowadays. And so, you've been in it now how many years?
This is my 15th year in the area here.
15th year in the
Yeah.
area. But when you start, so how many years have you been in it since like you were in Cleveland?
So you start training. I started training at 21. I'm 45 now.
So 24 years. So
24, 25 years.
yeah, so you've seen a
Oh, and if you go all the way back, I delivered my first baby with my dad when I was age 8.
Jeez.
was that a calf? Was that calf or a horse or an
No,
actual
that was
baby?
a human.
Oh,
we
okay.
did the calves prior to that.
Yeah, I remember Carson one time when again sidestepping here quite a bit, but Carson one time the vet came out, and his name was Dr. Barkus, and he was like 80 years old back then, and so Carson could not handle blood, and all of a sudden had a twisted stomach on a cow, so he's like, "Get over here, Carson," and Carson's like, "What?" He goes, "Stick your hand here and hold this while I get the other thing set up," and so it was just kind of that point of like, you had to learn, you didn't
Yeah.
have a choice, so. So anyways, as your girls are in sports now, and kind of going through that process, and you're talking about, okay, your 13-year-old versus your 16-year-old. At what age did you say, okay, let's kind of start getting involved here? And how do you see that becoming or changing now with parents? It's kind of driving the bus more so than the kids driving the bus. You know what I'm saying on that?
I get where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah, us parents are the problem these days. For most athletes, you'll burn them out.
Mm-hmm.
I see it a lot, especially with those that do have the potential to do something a little more than maybe high school. And if the parents know or have the ability, or worse yet, somebody like me that was a mediocre athlete and just didn't get enough of it, I'm at high risk to drive my kids too hard
Yeah.
and expect too much or make, not just be the parent in the cheering section with them. And I think you gotta have balance. You gotta still have fun every day or about every month at least. I'll check in with my older daughter, who's the one driving harder to get to another goal.
Yep.
And I'm like, is it still fun? Do you still like the grind? Is that enjoyable? You can't wait for more? Do you feel healthy? Does it make you healthier to be doing this? And do you like that we're still around and supporting you and all of that stuff? I make sure I check in with her on those things because if that ever gets a no answer or a wishy-wash answer, we got to change something.
Right.
And so then it would be self-reflection time as a parent that what's your role in that problem? And I bet you these days it's going to be the parent more than the athlete because the athlete will just drift into
Mm-hmm.
the next thing or whatever if you let them.
Right.
So they kind of naturally select for the activity that's healthy for them or that they want to do or that's still fun. The parent is probably the higher risk person in the equation.
Right. Because well, you jump on social media and you're like, I'll use hockey for example. Like you have to start hockey at like a young age, or you're pretty much outcast of certain sports.
Yeah.
Basketball. My daughter loves basketball. It's like you could be in basketball every night of the week, all year long, doing something. And it's like, wait a minute, are we? Is this what's beneficial? But sometimes as parents, you feel like if I'm not doing this, then we're falling so far behind, and it's kind of hard to pull that back and say, wait a minute, is this what you really want to do? And I agree with you. I think it's important that you're able to ask your kids and say, when you're ready and you really want to be involved, then we'll get involved.
Yeah.
I think that was like the conversation we had the other day with kind of like football being kind of like that last sport we thought that like it was just like once a year, fall, and that's like the only time you did football. That's why so many people I felt like enjoyed it. That's why I enjoyed it because like you're not doing it every single night of the week. And now with 7-on-7s and camps all over and stuff, it's kind of changing a little bit. But like, you look at every other sport. I mean, volleyball's all year round. It's soccer, you probably know, all year round. Like wrestling's all year round and stuff. So it's like for a lot of those kids, like they might like it, but like to love it is like on a whole different level. I mean, to do it every single day, I mean, it gets repetitive.
I think that's why some of them don't last, which is sad to see. It was really fun when we grew up to do multiple
Mhm.
sports. They have proven many times over that multiple sports make you a better athlete, and the chance of injuries and like overload injuries, stress injuries, and stuff like that, or burnout is less. Now it's hard to get really, really good at one thing
Mhm.
if you're doing all of that. So there is a balancing point. Um, we've supplemented that with things that are just supposed to be fun. So as a freshman, the older daughter went out for tennis. Sounds like we're going to go out for golf this year. Uh, in kind of the off season for soccer a little bit
Right.
where there's enough time to do something else. We like to ski both cross country, downhill. You just got to find other things that are a little less demanding to fit in there in those kind of highest level athletes where they have to give 110% every day.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned this earlier. When you were younger, you forced yourself to become more outspoken and more involved. That anti-anxiety, as you called it, that grit, the determination, discipline. Um, I still open the weight room up, and I see that a lot of times nowadays in kids. Is like you have great kids that show up, but you can just see the anxiety in their eyes. You can see they're disciplined to a point, but it's like, okay, wait a minute, and they're kind of looking over their shoulder, and it's like I remember back in the day when we went and played sports, it was because I got out of doing chores for a little bit. And it was like I went to play because okay, this is fun. We can do this and like, all right, this is something different. But it's almost like sometimes like these kids have jobs at such a young age. It's like, how do I get to that point? And so We talk about, Jade and I talk often about, the anxiety, the pressure, the stress. And you mentioned a little bit earlier, burning kids out. You know, in your role, as a physician, do you see a connection between the mental and the physical and the emotional health?
Yeah, I think you'll find that the performance goes down when the mental health is not quite right. Anxiety is a part of everything.
Hmm.
It's not that I don't have it; it's what I choose to do with it.
Right.
And so you can use sports to teach that because you get the pregame jitters, or you're about to do the final play and you're down by whatever a point or
Yeah.
something. What do you do? Are you going to rise up? And then when it comes time in your future career or a decision to be made that's important for your family or whatever, are you going to be able to fall back on those same things? So sports is great to learn a lot of these lessons. It also can break kids if they don't have people like you and I mentoring how to do that. And it's okay to feel those things.
Right.
Now what are we going to do?
Hmm.
It's not going to kill you. So you might as well take a breath and figure out if you still love the adrenaline of this situation you're in, and what are you going to do next about it. And if you lose, you lose.
Right.
It's all right. You'll maybe get it the next one.
Hmm.
So they have to learn how to deal with pressure. I think these days with social media and all of that, everything looks perfect. Well, most of it's fake, or scripted or whatever. And so that's what they see, the poor kids, rather than be allowed to try, fail, try again, start to succeed, and like the process
Right.
of developing something. It doesn't matter the outcome at the end. If you have a certain goal, let's work on goal setting and where your goal is. Is it realistic, first of all? And then how do you get there? And that's then the next level for the coach. But, it's the process that you're teaching them. It's to be healthy. All of those things are more important than the sport or the winning and
Right.
losing itself.
I feel like a lot of it too recently is just like all like how can I be like a Division 1 athlete, and that's like every athlete's goal. And it's not about I think sports are so many like life lessons you can learn and stuff. I feel like that's kind of like skipped out with a lot of kids. Like they don't like realize that like you have to like work together to achieve something, and like you're like just having fun. Like okay, you can lose at something. It's not the end of the world. And I mean you hear so many stories about like the Michael Jordans and the Kobe's, or like winning's the only thing that matters. They're getting paid millions for that though. When you're a high school athlete, like sit back, enjoy it. I mean, looking back at it, I was talking to you, John. Like when I watch like high school like games now and stuff, it's just like man, I should have just like enjoyed it more. I feel like, and like not like been so stressed out about every single thing, and like learn stuff along the way. I don't know. I feel like that's a little like part of athletics now too at
Yeah,
a younger age.
that's a good life lesson in general. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the process of
Hmm.
something, of developing yourself into something. And that could be anything from becoming an artist to an athlete to whatever. It's the same deal. You got to love the process of it, and you got to like the little steps and the little accomplishments. And it has to be fun, whatever you're doing with your time. If it's not fun or it makes you feel negative in some way, maybe a change needs to happen. Back to the parents too, like often when they're young, it's hard to figure out what they're going to be like. But everybody's going D1 when they're in grade school. When I have parents coming in, and so I have to have them chill a little bit.
Right.
Like okay, let's get this fixed up,
Hmm.
but let's also make sure the focus is correct. And I think with experience as a parent, you kind of figure that out a lot of the times. It's still sad to see the one or two in the crowd at a high school game where they haven't figured that out yet. But yeah, that's one of my roles also, is guiding the parents through something when it's not quite going right.
Yeah. That word process, and I talk often with my kids about that, is like, if you don't enjoy the process, you're not going to enjoy the outcome. Because I think a lot of people want to get to that outcome, but we talked a little bit before about the adversity, the challenges, the anxiety, all that stuff comes through the process. And as a parent, I think we sometimes we do more harm than good because we want to remove all that process from our kids. We want to get them to a D1 level. We want to get them to this. And it's like, wait a minute. If we do all that, um, we're not helping them, because the bigger challenges in life are going to come. We're not talking. Yeah, I mean, great. We all want our kids to be sports and this and whatever, but there's so much more in life, battling cancer, illness, all these other things, helping your neighbor out. And that's why I go back to is like on a farm growing up, like yourself is, it was a process,
Hmm.
everything was a process.
As a parent, your job is to teach and
Hmm.
foster those skill sets
Yeah.
that they'll use. You're growing a good human,
Hmm.
a good person. Now, if they happen to be a D1 athlete, then lucky you, that's even more fun in certain ways.
Right.
But whatever they are good at, celebrate those victories.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and no matter where they're at, they have a purpose where they're at and what they're doing. And so it's like, how do I acknowledge that and how to understand that? Um, so as you're into the training now, because you guys also have a training place at your facility as well, right now.
Yeah. So we partner with Twin Cities Orthopedics, and we have athletic trainers and physical therapists and orthopedic surgeons and non-surgeon sports medicine
Yeah.
specialists like myself, kind of in our collective group
Yeah.
that cares for all these athletes.
Yeah. So I remember one day I was talking to a gentleman from the University of Minnesota. He was saying, if we had a lot of the things that we did when we were kids, we wouldn't need all these trainers as far as physically doing this stuff. And I kind of thought about that as like, when you were a kid growing up, you didn't go to a workout place. You were just out working on the farm. Like you said, you're stacking hay bales, doing whatever you're doing. Um, do you see kids coming in nowadays and needing that more because of their lack of movement? Or do you see that need just because there's not um, anything else for the kids to do, I guess? I mean, what are your thoughts on that piece?
I think we could go a couple directions with that one, but I think there's a great need, particularly if you want to see what you can become,
Sure.
to have all these things, and it just keeps the funded knowledge keeps growing, and the way we do all of this development and all that and recovery and diagnosing and treating is just getting better all the time. The way we fix an ACL tear is totally different. Your recovery rate's totally better. We know how to not destroy you now.
Right.
When you and I were growing up, I mean, I have a bone on bone hip already at age 45 because I didn't know that pain in my groin was a labrum tear
Oh,
or whatever. And I just kept going.
yeah.
So, I mean, you get pretty tough, but I mean, those are things that now we probably would have taken a look, figured out a better method to taking care of that.
Right.
Um, so, and I think concussion care, it's a big part of what we do. When you and I grew up, it was more of a school of toughness, put some dirt on it, keep going.
Yeah. Got your bell rung.
Yeah, exactly. And you were back in there and you got hurt pretty bad. Sometimes there's probably people going around with anything as bad as CTE or depression and anxiety issues now that they don't know what else to do with because of damage,
Right.
and now it's respected, and it's rare that I have to convince a parent that their child is hurt. They're usually coming and asking, whereas 15 years ago, even when I first came, I was defending my diagnosis. So I think that's a spin-off of the question
Sure.
is, do we need all these things, or what's the benefit of all this advancement? We're doing it better now.
Yeah.
Look at the quality and size, the physique of all these athletes now.
Yeah.
That didn't happen before. If it did, you were a freak of nature,
Right.
but the rest of us were not. And so the human continues to improve itself. And this is just another example of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, Lincoln, I got a little side question that I've been wanting to ask you. You work with a lot of different schools and stuff, some middle border conference schools. You said Hudson and St. Chris Central, obviously. Hudson kids, St. Chris Central kids. Pick which one you like more.
You're going to do that to me?
I have to do that to you.
We got to give categories or something to make it fair. Make it fair. Here's the thing that I could answer this that would help a lot of people. When I am at these schools, I pay attention to how many times I am thanked for being there. I've never made a penny for covering an event or anything in my entire career, and there is thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that I have given to this. And all I ask is that you pay it forward, or you thank me or something like that. I am thanked the most at St. Croix Central
Oh,
Schools.
listen to him, man.
By far the record keeper of that. And
Mhm.
so back to gratitude, which can carry you a long, long way. The athletes in the school district at St. Croix Central is been incredible. They could be the poster child of what that should be.
You know, I have a little bone to pick with you though. My junior year, first
Oh,
year on varsity, we're playing Spencer Columbus, first game of the year, and you know, I'm coming down on like kickoff or something, or I forget what it even was, and like I just start cramping, I just start dying. And the cramps are like the most embarrassing thing ever because it's not an actual injury, but like you
yep.
can't move and stuff. So I come out, I'm just dying over here. Maddie's like picking my leg up. She's like, I'm killing. I was like, oh, whatever. Like, hopefully, like, no one saw me make a huge reaction. Next day, I'm scrolling on social media and stuff. I see, the football team got tagged in a post. Let me see this. Scrolling.
Sorry, man.
You got like a picture of me just dying on the ground. I was like, are you kidding me?
I
Like,
try to blur the number, the athlete number. I try to I have a pretty good photo ability on trying to not identify the guy.
you know, St. Croix Central's not the most diverse
I
school, so I was like, you don't need to see the numbers.
I was just trying to
That
figure
was.
out how to say that. Yeah, I think you took one for the team on that.
I had to, yeah.
That is a good famous picture. I remember that moment. Yep. I mean, when you're cramping, that is a funny injury because it's very transient. You know, once you recover and you're hydrated and you're not as hot, you're going to be fine. Some people get it over and over again, but so you can have a little fun with it sometimes, and it also takes your mind off. Try to let that cramp let go. But yeah, I usually joke around a little bit when you're cramping. I don't. Maddie was probably taking good care of you, so I didn't have to do much other than the peanut gallery part.
Well, we did a lot of hill running this summer and stuff over at the hills over here, and we did this pool workout. If you, I hate all pool workouts and stuff, and we're doing this running stuff, and just like randomly, I just got like shot. I just started crying, like, and then John's like, "Get out of here!" He's like, "I'm like, I just
Well, I don't want you drowned in the pool.
So those two moments, you guys have both witnessed my two worst cramping moments. From you yelling at me one, and then you exposing
Wasn't
me on
yelling at you, it was
social media.
encouraging you.
He cared a lot. He didn't want you to drown.
That is true.
Yeah,
That is true.
No, I mean sports, they humble you. It's part of the process. Life humbles you, whether it's sports or something else. I think those are unfortunately for you have a podcast to air all of these things out.
Right.
So
True.
others can kind of hide those things.
Yeah.
It makes it fun though, doesn't it?
It does make it fun.
In your years of experience, have you seen the injuries change? You talked about ACLs a little bit more, and now is there more a specific injury that you're dealing with right now, or is it pretty universal equally?
There's been small shifts. I think overall the volume of concussions have gone quite a bit down.
Okay.
That's mostly from rule changes and the way we train. I would get more concussion injuries from practice when I first came to town, and then we all learned that you don't need to kill each other in practice. It's
Sure.
about technique and preparing and so on, and maybe just enough contact and whatever that is to be ready. And so those things have improved it. Some small equipment improvements, although those aren't really validated to make, like, say, concussions less likely to happen. But we continue to put more into that. So I think those things have changed slightly. I have seen more pattern injury, so like your stress injuries in certain sports because of the less variety.
Okay.
I have seen the burnout become big, or anxiety and depression in our youth. And I think an outlet, when done properly, could be sports,
Yeah.
but you got to do it correctly.
Yeah.
The things we've talked about. I was just out of the country and came back. The obesity in our country is incredible.
It's insane.
And so hopefully there'll be some improvements coming here with our focus on that now,
Yeah.
finally, a little bit. But I think sports and being physically active, both in your youth and in your adulthood, is critical to your well-being.
Yeah.
And so find something you enjoy, pickleball, anything,
Right.
try something new, try curling or what, I don't know, just
Yeah.
come up with anything that makes your body move that you enjoy, and you will be a better person for that. Your mood is better stabilized because of that. And your body is just better. It's just physiologically better, and you perform better that way.
As we're coming to close on to this episode real quick, I, had a question that, this podcast is going longer than I thought and stuff, but a question I really wanted to ask you was a lot of parents now are very scared about their kids going into football, first at a young age or just in general. Tell me about, I know in Menominee, Coach Labuda's thing was like, don't do a tackle football until 7th grade at least to protect it. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the injury rate, at least for head injury, is probably going to be less if there isn't as much contact. Then again, when you're in flag football, are you hitting the hard ground in the fall or anything like that with nothing on? So I think there's ways to manipulate our younger age groups to keep them safer. If they're with certain rule changes or tackle. Um, that gets a little political as well these days
Mm-hmm.
too, and that's hard to because you got to, again, the parents, they're the ones that are going to make it political. But the key should be what makes your kids healthiest and safest, and what helps them develop the best. If you can answer those three things, then whatever fits into there. They think that going more flag, um, or at least delaying, tackle might help a little bit. I think they need a little more research to be sure, so that that's clear to those why we're doing that change if we do it.
Right.
It takes soccer. A lot of the best countries, Brazil, Italy, they practice only in small groups, threes, fives, sevens at the most, and it's like futsal based, where it's real, quick feet and heavier ball and so on, and they do that for way longer than we do. Thankfully, we have so many resources in this country as the United States is, with all these training facilities, that we're able to keep up. But that's where you get all these Ronaldos and everything else, is that they train differently. So, and when they're younger, they make changes like that, and it's designed on the development. And so it makes a big difference if you keep your kids safe, healthy, and help them develop and give them opportunities. See where they go.
Man, we could open a can of worms with European versus United States
Oh my
training.
goodness,
I'll have to
we
come
could.
back.
Oh,
No,
for
you're actually
sure.
allowed. That could be
Oh
an
my
hour conversation.
man, you talk about what's driving youth sports right now? Money, 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 and it's like
Wow.
it's hard to watch. But as we're wrapping up here, Lincoln, we really appreciate you coming on here. I have more questions now
Me
than I
too.
ever before. But we talk about for purpose, and as you have grown from South Dakota to Kansas City to Marquette to Ohio to around, um, how have you identified what your purpose is, and where does that lead you right now?
Uh, Still, you're always looking, right?
Yeah,
You should always be self reviewing and reflecting on what is your purpose in life? What is your purpose now? And what's next? And so mine has shifted from become somebody that can help others, in healthcare, once I found my place and passion for that. And then as I became a parent, my purpose became helping those two young ladies become the best they can be. Uh, I push really hard in everything I do, 110%.
right.
My most recent purpose is how can I become the best husband and kind of family man and support those around me. Where something had to give for a while, and I didn't realize it until I realized recently that I need to do better in that area. So that's my new purpose
Sure.
these days, and I think it'll shift a little bit over the course of time. Christian values go a long way. I don't think you necessarily need to have the exact same faith that somebody else does, nor push yours on someone else, but you got to have what that is.
Right.
Studied a lot about Native Americans. The even gotten into Islam versus Christianity. There's still a purpose for anyone that's not like a militant or something kind of like that. But and we need to have that, and you figure it out as you go. You can adjust it a little bit, but you got to have what that is driving you in your core, and then you apply that daily, and you go through the phases of life, and that'll shift with you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think without faith or without purpose, you're kind of like just sitting and you don't know what to do. And so awesome. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. This has been definitely one of my favorite episodes yet. It's been fantastic learning about you and your cowboy days up until now with working with some of the best athletes ever, the greatest athlete ever, I should say. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Every Wednesday, remember, we're posting these for purpose podcasts. Keep bringing out fantastic guests over here like Lincoln. Have a great rest of y'all's day. And remember, LeBron James is the GOAT. Thank you.